Have you ever wondered why the front camera on your phone is so bad? Why can't you just take a decent quality selfie, the same quality as you could on the rear camera? Then this phone might be for you. This is the Vivo V23 and it is all about the cameras, baby. Especially with the dual front selfie cameras, which give you the best selfies ever. Join me, James Bruce, as I take a closer look at the Vivo V23 and why it might be your next phone. Now, this is the V23 12GB model, which retails at under $500, though there's also an 8GB model for $400. So firstly, I want to touch briefly on the difference between the V23 and the V23 Pro. We have the basic V23 model, not the Pro. However, ours came with 12GB of RAM rather than 8, and it's distinguished by a more square appearance, basically, much like the current gen iPhones. The V23 Pro, on the other hand, in terms of specs, is fairly similar, though it has a better rear camera, 128 megapixels versus 64. But the main difference is in terms of style. It has a curved display. Now, both models come in black or this gorgeous iridescent, color-changing rose gold, blue, green, yellow, UV reactive color. The coloration is really going to make heads turn, and thankfully there's a clear gel case included in the box, because you will want the world to see this, especially when you're using it in selfie mode. So the body of this is also UV reactive, not in a 90s glow disco kind of way, but rather it will change color slowly when exposed to UV light. Yes, it's a bit more gimmicky than the overall gorgeous iridescence, but it does mean that you can, say, put an object on the back, leave it in the sun, and get a pretty cool imprint. Okay, I want to spend a good chunk of time on the selfie features, because that's really what this device is all about. And that's down to a combination of advanced software and a dual front camera system. If the selfie side of things isn't something that interests you, then this probably isn't the phone you're looking for. But that out of the way, you'll find on the front both a ridiculously high resolution 50 megapixel f2.0 main camera with eye tracking autofocus and a super wide 105-degree angle 8 megapixel f2.0 lens. This gives a lot of creative freedom with the wide angle selfie shots to show more of your surroundings or your friends, and that better main selfie lens than any other smartphone on the market today. If the main thing you do with your phone is to take selfies and record TikToks, you're really going to love this, and it'll really step your game up. But like I said, this is down to a combination of both the hardware and the software, so let's talk about the software too. While most phone selfies consist of a quick shot, maybe a standard AI beauty filter, perhaps some third-party filters that you add, with the Vivo V23 you have so many options that it can be a bit overwhelming, and those are all built into the main camera system. So let's talk about portrait mode, which is where the V23 has most of the options and really shines. Firstly, there's the lens choice, of course. The wide angle zoomed out group shots, or when you want to really highlight your surroundings, or that high quality, closer, traditional lens. Both of those have full access to the rest of the photo tools, unlike some phones where swapping lenses will then seriously cut down on your options elsewhere. So then you have bokeh adjustment. This is algorithmic, so results may vary, but generally I found it worked pretty well. If you're using the standard lens, you can even adjust the shape of the bokeh. So if you have some fairy lights in the background, then rather than just a speck of blurred light, you'll have, say, a soft cherry blossom or star shape. Next up, you have a selection of filters and lighting options. So as well as sort of classic filters you're probably already familiar with, you can also add, say, a teal orange film lighting look or a neon pink and purple cyberpunk style. From there, we get to the vast array of beauty, makeup, and posture options, so bear with me. With beauty adjustments, you can buff out blemishes, change your skin tone, whiten up. Remember, this is primarily designed for an Asian audience where whiter than white is classical beauty. You can change your facial structure, move your chin, widen things, make them slimmer, change the distance between your eyes. If you're doing profile shots, you can make your nose a bit smaller. You could make your eyes enormous like an anime girl, and your preferences will then be saved for next time. So if you have a particular look you like, you don't have to go in and redo everything again. The power of what you can do with this is frankly quite terrifying, but I'm not finished yet though. On the makeup tab, you can literally apply a variety of ready-made makeup styles or completely customize them, different shades of lipstick, etc. That said, it didn't work on my decidedly Western ham-coloured face, though it worked great on my Chinese wife. So again, your results may vary. Finally, if you're struggling to come up with the next great selfie, you might really appreciate the posture tab, which shows you an example shot in the corner and puts an outline template on the screen for you to then match. Honestly, this is great. It's even got couple styles or group shots to play with. Now, apart from posture, of course, this is probably nothing you couldn't do in post editing yourself through your choice of app, but having it right there while you're actually taking the shot, the live adjustment and the preview, the ability to save your own custom makeup styles. So if you have a particular look you really want to try like a series of shots for, it's really, really cool. Of course, it's not just portrait shots either. If you're using the main selfie lens, you can actually record in 4K 30 FPS or 4K 60 FPS if you have the Pro model. Now, it's a slightly bit lower for the wide-angle camera. However, the fact that you can even record video from that wide-angle lens is very cool. A lot of phones will just turn off video mode for those extra lenses. You also get access to some of the AI beauty filters. Not the live makeup, however, and not the lighting adjustments, just the actual beauty filter bits. Of course, for myself and Sakura here, there's very little you can do to improve upon perfection. Isn't that right, Sakura? Yes. Yeah. So just to demonstrate the recording video from the wide angle camera here, I had to drop down to 1080p and turn off HDR, but as you can see, you can still get great quality video from that wide angle lens. Yuri, say hi. Yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot, there are two front LEDs to brighten up your shots, or you can use what they call Aura, which seems to use the phone screen as a sort of soft light box. You should also now be seeing some samples from the rear lens, which I've compared photographically to an iPhone X and my Lumix DSLR, which this is being filmed on. I don't want to spend too much on these comparisons because although it does look fantastic, the main feature of this camera is the selfie cameras. The rear camera, the main one, is 64 megapixels, and it's very impressive, but it's not remarkable when compared to the market as a whole. You can get that same level of quality elsewhere. So suffice to say, you won't be disappointed with the rear cameras either. They will take just as good shots as the selfie camera too, better even. But if it was that alone, it probably wouldn't be worth shouting about in today's market. You can get those same lenses elsewhere. This is just to demonstrate something called ultra stabilization mode. I'm going to pan around a bit here, see what that does. So I'm walking around on very uneven ground, and it's actually doing a pretty good job, isn't it? Of course, it does cut the video off a bit, so if I switch out to standard stabilization here, then you can see the difference in the picture crop. These are taken on the main rear camera. And again, let's swap over to wide angle to see what that looks like. So this is recording 1080p from the wide angle rear camera with standard stabilization mode on. Again, just walking around over the uneven ground. Whoop, got caught in a bramble there. Hey, Sakura. You can't eat this. They won't be pleased with that. Okay, so we've talked about the cameras, and they are the most impressive part of the phone. Now let's talk about everything else. In terms of other specs then, the device weighs a scant 181 grams without the case, and a mere 7.5 millimeters thick, though obviously it's slightly heavier and slightly thicker with that case on. There are bezels, but they are very slimline, so you have a large 6.44 inch FHD Plus display, or 1080 by 2400 pixels, which works out at about 400 pixels per inch and is absolutely gorgeous. The notch, of course, is perhaps a little bit larger in this phone because it has the dual front cameras, but not a significant amount. The fingerprint sensor is buried just underneath the main display, and if it detects motion it sort of lights up like that, so you don't need to guess where it is. It's very neat and definitely better than having it slap bang in the middle of the back of the device or something awkward along the edge. Overall, I really like the design. It's not fussy. There's the power and volume buttons on the side, and then a USB-C and SIM tray with speaker on the bottom. It looks good and it feels good in your hand. For the type of buyer who this is aimed at, who also wants their phone to be a fashion accessory, this definitely fits the bill. There's also a 42,000 milliamp hour battery with up to 44 watt charging, for which a suitable adapter is included in the box. What a remarkable concept, a phone coming with a charger. Well, I never. The raw processing power is certainly there thanks to the Dimensity 920 chip with a Mali G68 MC4 GPU, and that's backed up by 12 gigabytes of RAM in this model anyway. It managed to score 2307 in the 3D Mark wildlife test and averaged 13.8 frames per second, pretty respectable. Geekbench 5 gave it 731 single core, 2136 multi-core and 2779 GPU compute, which is about what we'd expect from a mid-range device. You certainly won't have trouble running anything on this. I tried Genshin Impact, admittedly not something I'm familiar with, but apparently it's a thing nowadays, and that ran pleasantly well. Never seemed to experience any slowdown during the early fight stages anyway. Now, the screen supports up to 90 Hz for really fast-paced games. You can either allow it to automatically ramp up when needed, or just lock it in at 90 or 60, depending on your use case, as not all of apps seem to support the automatic switching. With 256 gigabytes of storage, you'll also have plenty of room for all the high-resolution selfies you could possibly need, as well as many epic anime-based online games as you wish. Audio, however, is unimpressive, and there's a single speaker on the bottom here. It gets reasonably loud, but the quality won't blow you away. This isn't a phone for watching massive amounts of media. It's sufficient, it'll do. On the user interface, sadly, I have little good to say at all, other than it is at least responsive. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the Vivo V23 FunTouch OS exemplifies everything that's wrong with Android, and it has a serious case of split personality disorder out of the box. Even if you do a full reset and deselect all of the optional app installs, which I did, it still comes with a bunch of crapware pre-installed. You can uninstall some of it, but then it pops up with an annoying notification from the Vivo App Store. Hey, maybe you'd like to download insert objectively identical app name here instead. And the occasional check out this random app that's completely not relevant to you notifications, which if you accidentally click on them will immediately begin installing, not just await confirmation, no, just install. I hope you can click cancel soon enough. If you want to quickly search for an app from the system-wide search feature, don't bother. If the app is on the Vivo store, that's going to be your default, not Google Play. And it doesn't end there. You have the Vivo browser when Chrome would be sufficient. You even have a replacement for the Google Home feed called Jovi Home. Then you have an annoying system security scanner thing that seems to be permanently asking me to scan my apps, which I wouldn't need to do if I stuck to the Google Play Store only. And by the way, you can't silence those system notifications. Not allowed. Why, oh why, do manufacturers think this kind of bloatware is actually acceptable? It really isn't. Now, I'm pretty sure this is because Google services aren't available in certain regions. However, it would be nice if, for regions where it is available, you actually had the option to disable all the customized stuff and preferably just have a stock Android install with apps for standout features like the camera. I don't know anyone who is buying a Vivo phone because they prefer FunTouch OS. That's really not a thing. And yes, I know some of you are shouting out, oh, just use ADB to freeze or uninstall the unwanted apps and then replace the launcher. And I'm sure that's an option if you're technically minded, but given that this phone is aimed at selfie-loving teen girls, we shouldn't have to do that. With all that said, in terms of general usability outside of the bloatware, it's great. The under-screen fingerprint reader mostly worked reliably, responsively, as did the face unlock. There we go. And the phone UI is always snappy, no doubt helped by the 12 gigabytes of RAM and the dynamic screen refresh rate. It's just disappointing that you'll need to go through so much customization to get rid of things that shouldn't be there in the first place, and it mars what would otherwise be a really fantastic, dare I say it, fun smartphone. Anyway, battery life, not an issue. It'll last all day and then some, and it seemed to be pretty good at standby battery preservation. 4,300 milliamp hours is not the biggest battery around, but nor is it the smallest. But even with this big, bright, gorgeous screen, it handles things well. It also includes, as I said in the box, a flash charger, up to 44 watts, though when I tested that, charging from 20%, it only seemed to go up to 30 watts peak, so perhaps 44 watts would only be used for that initial 20%. Either way, it is ridiculously fast to charge. If you need it less than an hour, it was 100% again. That said, fast charging is not good for overall battery life, so if you have a choice, it's best to trickle charge using the lowest power charger you have available, say, overnight. The faster you charge, the more you're stressing out the chemicals in the battery, and it will decrease the overall lifespan before things start to degrade. So do keep the fast charger for when you really need it, when you're desperate. Also, bizarrely, there's no wireless charging. Maybe that's related to the fancy back cover. That won't bother you when you first get the phone, but I find that as a phone gets closer to the end of life after 2-3 years, then being able to keep it topped up throughout the day is very simple. Just put it down on a wireless charger on your desk or wherever. It's pretty much essential at that point. But I guess you could also just use the fast charger once and be done for another half day. So now we get to the big question. Should you buy the Vivo V23? There is a lot to love about the Vivo V23. It performs well, it has masses of space and memory to handle anything you could throw at it. It has a gorgeous camera system, but clearly this isn't a device that's going to appeal to the mass market. It's carved out a niche of selfie and TikTok lovers, and if that's your niche, then this is simply the best smartphone you'll find for that creative selfie freedom, and it will really give you an edge over everyone else. From the bawdy, color-changing back color to the focus on front cameras though, most people would probably get better value elsewhere and a more satisfying stock user interface without having to put up with endless custom apps. It is, however, great to see some actual innovation in this Android smartphone space, and if Vivo wasn't already on your list of smartphone manufacturers to consider next, it definitely should be. Anyway, I hope this review told you what you needed to know about the V23, how good the cameras are, and whether it's right for you. If it did, please do hit like. I would really appreciate that, as it helps YouTube to know, yep, this video helped, rank it a bit higher. And also, please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more reviews like this from myself, James Bruce, reviews editor at makeuseof.com, and the rest of my team. Until next time, thanks for watching.